He was my gentle giant. I call him my rock. He was my support. He was my best friend.
An emotional service today for Andre Hill, a man killed by police just before Christmas. His family, his friends, and many in the community all hurting tonight over his loss.
Imagine this. It's just before 2 in the morning in a quiet Columbus neighborhood. A man steps out of a friend's garage, holding a glowing cell phone and a set of keys. No shouting, no fight, no weapon. Seconds later, a veteran police officer opens fire. For shots tear through the night. The man collapses onto the driveway. And what happens next is so disturbing, so inexcusable, that an entire city is forced to change its laws just to make sure it never happens again. His name was Andre Mauricio. He was 47 years old, a black man, a father, a grandfather. That night, he wasn't breaking into a home. He wasn't attacking anyone. He was simply visiting a friend when a non-emergency call about a suspicious vehicle put him on a collision course with an officer who claimed he saw a gun where there was none. No gun was ever found. No weapon at all. And yet, Andre Hill ended up dead in a driveway in front of a house where he should have been safe. In this episode, we're going to break down how a low-level call about a car that was just turning on and off spiraled into killing. We'll look at the body camera footage that finally forced the truth into the open, the officer's story versus the evidence, and the stunning outcome that makes this case one of the rare times an on-duty officer is actually convicted of murder. But before we dissect the failures, I want to hear from you. If you walked out of a friend's house holding only your phone, do you think you should have to fear being shot by the police? Tell me where you're watching from in the comments, because I want to know how safe you actually feel where you live. And to understand the full weight of what was taken that night, we have to start with who Andre Hill was, long before his name ever appeared in a headline. Welcome to the Crime Anatomy. I'm your host, and today we're dissecting one of the most disturbing police shooting cases in recent years. If you're new here, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. Stories like this aren't just content, they're warnings. They show us how systems fail, how quickly a life can be taken. Andre Mauricio was 47 years old when he died. Born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, he attended Northland High School and later earned certifications in trade work and hospitality. He loved working with his hands, fixing things, building things, helping people when they needed it. But what defined Andre most wasn't his resume. It was his presence. His grandchildren called him Big Daddy. And that wasn't just a nickname, it was who he was. A hands-on grandfather who picked kids up, cooked for them, showed up for birthdays and everyday moments that don't make it into photo albums, but make up the fabric of a family's life. Friends and family described him as warm, easy to talk to, the kind of person who could walk into a room and make people feel comfortable. He loved to cook, especially at family gatherings. You'd find him at the grill or the stove, making sure everyone was fed, laughing, telling stories, anchoring the room. His ex-wife, his sister, his children, they all spoke about him after his death with the same ache, the ache of someone who was there, and then suddenly wasn't. His daughter, Carissa Hill, talked about how holidays felt hollow without him, how his grandchildren kept asking when Big Daddy was coming back, how impossible it was to explain that he wouldn't. Andre wasn't living on the margins. He was deeply embedded in his family and his community, a network of friends, cousins, and church members who showed up to vigils after his death because they knew exactly what had been lost. And on the night of December 22nd, 2020, Andre wasn't doing anything extraordinary. He wasn't in a confrontation. He wasn't armed. He was visiting a friend, a completely ordinary thing that millions of people do every day without a second thought. But for Andre Hill, that ordinary visit became the last thing he ever did. Let's go back to the beginning of that night. Around 1:49 in the morning, someone in the neighborhood near 1000 Oberlin Drive in Columbus calls the police. It's not a 911 emergency call. It's a non-emergency report. The complaint? A suspicious vehicle that was incessantly turning on and off. That's it. A car turning on and off. No shots fired. No break-in. No one screaming for help. Just a vehicle that seemed out of place. And a neighbor who thought it was worth reporting. This is the kind of call that, in a functioning system, should result in an officer knocking on a window, asking a few questions, maybe running a plate, and then leaving. It's low level. It's non-threatening. It's the kind of thing that happens in neighborhoods all over the country every single night without incident. But this call didn't end that way. 2 officers respond. Adam Coy and his partner, Amy Detweiler. Coy is a 17-year veteran of the Columbus Division of Police. He's white, and he has a history, a lengthy record of citizen complaints. Most of those complaints were deemed unfounded by internal review, but the sheer number of them should have raised questions. It should have triggered closer scrutiny, more oversight, maybe even reassignment. But it didn't. Coy was still on the street, still responding to calls, still carrying a gun and a badge. When Coy and Detweiler arrive in the area, they begin to look around. They're searching for the suspicious vehicle, trying to figure out what the neighbor was concerned about. And that's when they encounter Andre Hill. Andre is at a friend's house. He's been visiting. He's walking from the garage area back toward the driveway, and in his hands he's holding 2 things: a lit cell phone in his left hand and a large set of keys in his right. The phone is glowing. It's clearly visible on the body camera footage that will later be reviewed in court. The keys are jangling. Andre is calm. He's not running. He's not reaching for anything. He's not shouting. He's just there. And here's where the body camera issue becomes critical. Adam Coy does not have his body camera fully activated at the moment he encounters Andre. His partner, Amy Detweiler, does. Her camera captures video and some audio of what happens next. But Coy's camera, the one that would have shown his exact perspective, his exact line of sight, the exact moment he claims he saw a gun, that camera isn't on. Body cameras have a feature called Look Back, which captures 60 seconds of video without audio before the camera is manually activated. So there is some footage. But the most critical moments, the commands, the perceived threat, the split-second decision to fire, are documented incompletely from a partner's angle, without the full context that Coy's own camera would have provided. This failure to activate his camera will later become one of the charges against him. But in the moment, it means that the only full record of what happens next is partial, and it has to be pieced together from Detweiler's footage, witness statements, and forensic analysis. So here's what we know happened. Based on that footage and the evidence presented at trial, Coy approaches Andre. He shouts commands. Andre appears to follow them. And then, within seconds, Coy opens fire. 4 shots. 3 of them strike Andre in his right leg. 1 strikes him in the chest. Andre falls to the ground. He's gravely wounded. He's unarmed. And he's dying.
To the side! Hands out to the side, now! Roll to your stomach, now! Yeah. Hey, don't get fucking close, I can't see his fucking hand. Get your hand up from underneath you, now! You got a medic coming. Don't move, dude!
The coroner will later rule the manner of death a homicide caused by multiple gunshot wounds. The autopsy will show that the combination of those 4 bullets, the leg wounds and the chest wound, were fatal. But here's what Adam Coy says happened. He says he believed Andre Hill was holding a silver revolver. He says he saw what he thought was a gun, and he fired because he believed Andre posed a deadly threat to him and to his partner. He says it was a split-second decision, the kind of life or death call that officers are trained to make when they believe their lives are in danger. And here's what the evidence says. There was no gun, not on Andre's body, not in the garage, not anywhere near the scene. The only objects in Andre's hands were a cell phone and a set of keys. The phone was lit. It was glowing. It was clearly visible on camera. The keys were metallic, jangling, and also clearly visible. Prosecutors would later argue, and a jury would later agree, that Adam Coy did not have a reasonable belief that Andre Hill posed a deadly threat, that the use of lethal force was not justified, that Coy fired too quickly, without taking the time to properly assess what he was actually seeing. But in that moment, none of that mattered, because Andre Hill was on the ground, bleeding, and the officers on scene were about to make another choice, one that would become just as damning as the shooting itself.
Spoke to a neighbor who says she didn't hear a thing, no gunshots, no officer commands. She woke to find her front yard covered in crime scene tape. As the mother of a black son herself, she says this crime hits home for her.
There's a mom out there that's probably similar to me in age. My son is similar in age to that man. And it's an unbearable thought that she had to lose her child. And for what doesn't appear to be any valid reason. This is a dead human being. He deserves to be remembered. I'm very sad to have the loss, but I don't want to forget about him either.
Andre Hill is lying on the driveway. He's been shot 4 times. He's unarmed. He's unresponsive. And the first thing the officers do is handcuff him. Let that sink in for a moment. A man has just been shot. He's not moving. He's not a threat. He's bleeding out. And instead of immediately trying to save his life, the officers restrain him. This is the image that will haunt this case. A dying man handcuffed, treated like a suspect instead of a human being in desperate need of help. And then for roughly 10 minutes, nothing happens. No CPR. No pressure applied to the wounds. No frantic calls for an ambulance to hurry. Just waiting. More officers arrive on the scene. They stand around. They talk. They secure the area. But no one is focused on the one thing that matters. Andre Hill is dying and every second counts. Body camera footage captures this delay. It captures the officers' movements, their conversations, their lack of urgency. And it captures the fact that meaningful medical aid is not provided until it's far too late. For Andre's family, this 10-minute gap is almost harder to process than the shooting itself. Because the shooting, as horrific as it was, happened in seconds. It was a split-second decision, however wrong. But the failure to render aid, that was a choice. A sustained, deliberate choice not to treat Andre Hill like a life worth saving. And this failure, this 10-minute void, will become the catalyst for one of the most significant policy changes to come out of this case. But before we get to that, we need to talk about what happened next in terms of accountability. Within days of the shooting, Adam Coy is fired from the Columbus Division of Police. The department moves quickly to distance itself from him, and the termination is swift. But firing him is just the beginning. Local and state authorities launch investigations. The body camera footage is reviewed. The autopsy is completed. Witness statements are taken, and the evidence begins to paint a damning picture. An unarmed man shot without justification, left without aid, by an officer who failed to follow basic protocols. By early 2021, Adam Coy is indicted on multiple charges: murder, felonious assault, dereliction of duty, specifically for failing to activate his body camera and for failing to properly notify other officers about the alleged threat he claimed to perceive. These charges are significant. Murder charges against on-duty police officers are rare. Convictions are even rarer. But the evidence in this case is strong, and the public pressure is immense. Still, the case drags on. For Andre's family, this means years of waiting, years of reliving the night he died, years of watching the legal system move at a pace that feels agonizingly slow when you're the one left with an empty chair at every family gathering. Jury selection and trial finally begin in October 2024, nearly 4 years after Andre's death. The trial is intense. The prosecution plays the body camera footage over and over. They bring in expert witnesses to testify about use of force, threat assessment, and the reasonableness of Coy's actions. They present the autopsy findings. They call officers and witnesses to describe what they saw and heard that night. The state's argument is clear. Andre Hill was unarmed. He followed commands. He posed no threat. Adam Coy fired too quickly, without a reasonable perception of danger, and then failed to provide aid. This was not a justified use of force. This was murder. The defense argues that Coy believed he saw a gun, that in the split second he had to make a decision. He perceived a deadly threat and acted according to his training, that he made a tragic mistake, but not a criminal one. The jury hears all of it. They watch the footage. They listen to the testimony. They deliberate. And in November 2024, they return a verdict: guilty. Guilty of murder. Guilty of reckless homicide. Guilty of felonious assault. The courtroom is silent. Andre's family weeps. Some in relief, some in grief, some in a complicated mix of both. In July 2025, Adam Coy is sentenced to 15 years to life in prison, a mandatory sentence under Ohio law for the convictions. Coy, who is undergoing treatment for Hodgkin lymphoma at the time of sentencing, says he intends to appeal. He maintains that he acted in accordance with his training, that he believed his life was in danger, and that the conviction is unjust. But the conviction stands, and it's significant, because this is one of the rare cases where an on-duty police officer is actually found guilty of murder for a shooting that happened in the line of duty. It's a moment of accountability that many families in similar situations never get. But accountability didn't stop in the courtroom. There was also a civil case. In 2021, the city of Columbus approved a $10 million settlement with Andre Hill's family. It's one of the largest pretrial wrongful death settlements in Ohio history. The settlement is an acknowledgement, an institutional admission that something went terribly, inexcusably wrong. Together, the criminal conviction and the civil settlement represent a dual track of justice: financial compensation for the family and criminal accountability for the officer. But for Andre's children, his grandchildren, his sisters, none of it brings him back. The money doesn't fill the hole at the dinner table.
He was my gentle giant. I call him my rock. He was my support. He was my best friend.
A loved one laid to rest.
I just thank him for being the best father that a daughter or a child could ever ask for.
But a family that now won't rest.
I love for all of us to practice more on learning one another than the judgmental and hate.
Through laughter.
He could light up the room with his interest, his smile. And also you knew you were about to hear a long, funny story because he could talk. He definitely was a talker.
And tears.
Andre was definitely a family man, and he should be here with us right now.
The life of Andre Hill celebrated Tuesday morning. The father, grandfather, brother, uncle, and friend who was shot by former police officer Adam Coy exactly 2 weeks ago.
His death will not be in vain. His memory will not be forgotten. Instead, his life will be celebrated as a call for justice.
Let's be clear about something. Even with a murder conviction, even with a $10 million settlement, even with a law named after him, Andre Hill's family is still living with a loss that can never be repaired. His seat at the table is still empty. His grandchildren are still growing up without Big Daddy. His daughter still has to navigate holidays, birthdays, and ordinary Tuesdays with the weight of his absence. Justice in the legal sense was served, but justice in the human sense, the kind that makes a family whole again, that's impossible. Andre's death forced a reckoning. It led to a rare murder conviction. It led to a $10 million settlement. It led to Andre's Law, a policy that now requires officers in Columbus to provide immediate aid. It led to a national conversation about threat perception body cameras and the deadly cost of seeing guns where there are only phones. Andre Hill's story is a tragedy, but it's also a call to action. Because as long as phones and keys can be mistaken for guns, as long as body cameras can be left off, as long as aid can be withheld from people bleeding on the ground, no one is truly safe. If you believe Andre Hill's story matters, and that no one should die this way, share this video. Subscribe to the Crime Anatomy, and keep saying his name, because change doesn't begin in a courtroom or a city council meeting. It begins with people who refuse to forget, people who refuse to accept that this is just the way things are. This is the Crime Anatomy, where we don't just tell the story, we dissect the system that allowed it to happen. Andre Maurice Hill, 47 years old, father, grandfather, Big Daddy. Say his name.